Hi, it's Monty here. Welcome back to OnFARM. This time we're heading back to Ness on the north of Lewis in the Western Isles.
Oh, there's the eagle. There's the eagle there. I just saw wings behind that.
Just skimming the ground.
Oh, there it is now. There it is now. There's a white tail there anyway. There's a young golden eagle here.
Fabulous.
It's the second half of our chat with crofter, counsellor and BBC Alba TV presenter Domhnall Macsween. OnFARM producer Dave Howard has been spending time with Domhnall. This episode is supported by the Scottish Rural Network and will open on the wide peat moors of Lewis. It's where Domhnall keeps his cattle with, as we'll hear, a bit of help from modern technology.
We're heading out onto the common grazing right now because that's where my cows are. The majority of crofts here are tenanted, so I am the tenant. I don't actually own the croft, but I've got security of tenure. As long as I put that to an agricultural use, it cannot be taken off me. It's an asset. I can then sell that asset, but the Crofting Commission have to give approval. That's a regulatory body for crofting. So they have to give approval. If you were wanting to buy a croft off me, for example, you would have to put in a business plan and say, this is what I want to do with the croft, and I'm going to be moving here with my young family and adding to the community, all these kind of things. If you didn't have a clue and you were just saying and I would never dare of suggesting that you didn't have a clue, but if you didn't have a clue and you thought, I want to buy a croft and just don't do anything with it, and maybe just have horses on it, then that's a grey area. It's not quite.
So just having the money to buy it is not the hurdle to get over. It's
a lot of people get caught out. They think, I'm going to buy a croft.
I'm going to go and live the dream.
Yeah. It happens a lot. You get people, they come and buy a croft, and maybe they've been here in the summer, and you think, it's quite nice, it's okay. But it's very different in January when it's pitch black. If you're working over in Stornoway or in an office or something, you only see your croft in daylight hours on a Saturday and a Sunday, and we don't do any work. Most of us don't do any work here on a Sunday, so you've got one day of the week that you're going to be a crofter, because you're not going to do anything in the mornings and the evenings. So it's a totally different ball game. So this is us going out the peat road, the road to the common grazing. So either side of the road right now are our common grazing village parks. So there's some of my sheep. I don't think anybody else's sheep in there just now. So they're my sheep on the left. The field on the right is where we put our rams. Yeah.
So this is just wide open. It's not fenced off at all. It's just common land. Fenced from the road. But
fenced from the road, yeah. So on the left, that's a 30-hectare park. And then when we cross this, so here is our village fank. So that's just a communal sheep handling area.
So you get them all in there, and then you separate them out.
Yeah.
To the particular crofters that own the sheep.
So we've just come over the cattle grid, and this is us on the open moor. So there's nothing between us here and Stornoway on the other side of the island.
Wow.
So you're probably, 20 miles as the crow flies, 15 miles as the crow flies. It's a 25-mile drive. This is probably the kind of roads you thought you were coming to. This is a peat road, so this is just... how do you describe it? It's basically just
bumpy,
but very bumpy, carved out of the peat. The reason this road is here is not for animal management; it's for taking the peats home or accessing the peats. And this year, it's peat cutting is making a bit of a comeback as well because of the price of energy costs going up. And one of the guys that cuts peats, he says his orders have tripled this year. So this is a free resource for us. I say free. There's if you're going to do it by hand, there's a lot of work to be done. But one of the concerns with the whole kind of environmental movement, and I will sound like I'm one of these antis. I'm not. I recognise that things have to be done. I'm all for renewables, but blanket bans on anything don't work. You have to remember the traditional communities as well, and you could say, well, why should we be allowed to cut peat? Well, look at all around us here. There's no trees, so you you're looking at the peat banks on the other side here. All these lines that you can see on the ground, these are peat banks. These are ancient peat banks. People would not have lived here for the best part of, 1,000 years. Probably over, it's over 2,000 years people have lived here. But they couldn't have lived here if it wasn't for the peat. So why, in the blink of an eye, are we going to be stopped from doing that? I understand the big picture stuff, but until all the houses here are insulated to within an inch of their lives, that energy is affordable for people. We have, I think, the highest, before the energy crisis, we had the highest rate of fuel poverty in the UK, where people are spending more than 10% of their income on heating their homes. So fuel poverty is already an issue here. And if you're taking away the one energy resource we have on our doorstep, because the other thing we have is wind, but I can't do anything with that wind without spending £20,000-30,000 to get some from my house. And okay, the carbon side of things for the peat, I get it. But in the short term, if you take away the peat, then it's going to have to come in. It's going to be oil, or it's going to be wood that's coming from the mainland and be transported by tanker and ship and everything.
Because actually, when you're digging up and burning peat, you're burning ancient carbon that's been locked away for millennia, and that on paper is never going to be a good thing until you understand the kind of nuanced arguments that you're putting forward now.
Exactly, and I think it's just important that our voices are not forgotten in all of this. You've got to speak to us, because I could go down to your average punter in Edinburgh or in London or whatever and say, should there be a blanket ban on peat extraction? Most of them will say yes, because we're insignificant. But it's significant to us. This isn't just the cultural aspect of it, which is important, but it's the practical aspect. It's that yes, there is a climate emergency, but there's also an energy emergency. So if you want people to live in areas like this and not just be a playground for tourists, then you have to make it viable for people to live in these places. So you can see my cows now anyway. So the cows, the Highland cows, they live out here for nearly all of the year, and they just roam the common grazing. I also use them for conservation grazing with the RSPB in the winter. So corn crakes are, well, we know, what's this over here? It's geese. So you can see the geese here with the goslings running away.
Yes, yeah.
So they're just waddling away beside the road. We have a major problem with geese. There's thousands of them, and there isn't proper management done of them. How many? I think it's 3 goslings we've got there. They appear in people's gardens and stuff and just demolish everything. So here's the cows. So the cows are a relatively new thing here. I think I've had them maybe 6 years now. So still learning. You're always learning with livestock, but still learning a lot when it comes to the cattle. They're all Highland or Highland crosses, and they've been brilliant. They've been absolutely fantastic, and I think we'll get out here. You're not scared of cows, are you?
I'm not scared of cows, no.
That's fine.
Although we should say for the podcast, you shouldn't get too close to cows unless you're with the farmer or the crofter who knows what they're doing.
This is the thing. See this white one beside us? She loves to stab. Now,
oh great! Perhaps I will stay in the truck.
She loves to stab, and I've had a group of kids here before, and I remember saying, just like you said there, a wee public safety announcement, and I remember saying, whatever you do, don't turn your back on cows. You've got to be careful, keep your eye on them all the time. And as I was doing this, I had my back turned to her, and she shoved her horn up my backside. So those kids,
as if on cue.
Yes, those kids learned that I meant business. Right, let's go. So what we've got here is I started off with 2, the brown one there and the white one, and then I got this black one. The black one here, she doesn't have horns, but she was dehorned as a calf because she was raised as a pet and she was stabbing the others that were in the shed with her. So she came to me dehorned. Throw it, and see if she'll come up to me. Throw it is come in Gaelic.
Bit of motivational cake.
Yes.
So she'll come up to me now. She'll eat out of my hand. So these are all they're all pregnant. There's six pregnant cows here just now, due 3 weeks. The brown one here is due 3 weeks tomorrow, and she's been a bit. I was out here earlier looking at them, and she was a bit under the weather, I think. So what do you note? What looks out of place on these cows just now?
Yeah, no. The one thing I would say I'm not familiar with is the. I thought they were bells to begin with, but they're radio.
This is geofencing collars. So this is from a firm called No Fence. They use GPS, and like I said, there's nothing between us and Stornoway here. So the cows have a massive area to roam in. I got these in October, and ever since I got them, fixed all my problems overnight. The cows, there's never that text or phone call saying your cows are out, so that has all been sorted. And I was talking, I mentioned to you earlier that I do conservation grazing for the RSPB in the winter. A lot of that is done. They're in corn crake schemes, and the crofts need to be grazed by cattle. She's
got an itchy head, look.
Scratching herself on my leg. And the crofts need to be grazed. A lot of these crofts aren't fenced, it's not totally stock proof. You could go in with electric fences, but electric fences in the winter here aren't reliable. They get blown over, and if they don't work, the cows go everywhere. So the cows are fully trained on these collars. The collars work. They're brilliant. I wish I'd got them years ago. I've got a spare one in the back there, so I'm going to get that for you, and I'll show you what it looks like.
You're going to put it on me?
Give you a wee electric shock.
Aye, that's what it is, right? So it's a little.
It looks like these bells you see.
Cowbell,
cowbell, yeah.
Austrian cowbell. Either
side of this, it's a solar panel. So that's a solar panel there that charges the battery. That's the battery inside it, and this goes around the cow's neck. And it's got a green rubbery bit that goes around the back of the neck, but then it's a chain either side. As they approach a boundary, which I set the boundary on the app on my phone, as they approach the boundary, they get an audio alarm. That gets louder and louder and louder. If they reach the boundary, they get an electric shock. And that electric shock, it's approximately 1/3 the power of an electric fence. But the cows now know that as soon as the audio alarm starts, they stop and they turn back. And they took a few days to be trained on it, but I just drew like a line in the middle of the croft one day, and I walked out, and then all the cows are standing in the middle in a line there. It's like, okay, that's it worked. They know now not to do it. I could draw an area here that has no fences at all. I've had them right up beside the road, right beside the road, and they will not escape.
So we've talked in the past, we spoke to Giles Henry down in the Borders a couple of weeks ago about strip grazing and moving fences strip to strip to strip to get the best out of his grass. Yep. You could be doing that here with this no-fence system without the fences. You could just on the app, presumably, change the boundary that they get hit by.
Without having to get out of my bed. Because it is. I'll get my phone. So there we go. We can see. Let's just get it to refresh. But yeah, it works brilliantly. I can move them. I can check them. It gives me because they're out in the moor here. I can put exclusion zones in. Say there's a particularly dangerously boggy part or a loch, I can exclude them from that. Could exclude them from the river if I didn't want them to be crossing the river. And are you scared of a horn here just now?
No, but I'll take your guidance.
She's fine. This one's fine. So yeah, you can do that. You can protect the environment as well as the cattle. The other thing it does is if it doesn't detect movement. So if, for example, they were stuck in a bog, it'll send me a thing saying movement hasn't been detected in a while, and then I can go and check that. I've actually got a drone as well, so in theory, I could be here.
From your bed?
From my bed. Open the window, fly the drone out the window and go and check the cows. So I could do visual, because they can be far out on the moor. And sometimes I don't want to disturb them. I can get them to come into me. If they hear the pickup of the quad, they'll come looking for me. But I can leave them out wherever they're grazing, check them with the drone, and then not disturb them. But I think it'll be good when they're I've only had the drone a few months, and I think it'll be good when they're calving that I can do visual checks on them when they're calving without getting too close and bothering them. These collars have already paid themselves back in one winter because I reduced my feed bill completely. So these cows are paying for themselves.
That's so important right now as well. The cost of inputs going through the roof. Lots of people are going to be thinking more and more about these sorts of alternative solutions.
Yeah, absolutely. Like the collars that I've got there, because I'm a crofter, there's a crofting agricultural grant scheme. So I got a 60% grant for the collars. You know, that makes them more affordable. But they were about just under 300 quid each, I think, off the top of my head. If I get a 60% grant for that, excellent. And then if it's reducing my feed bill, that's even better. It means it makes them even more affordable in the long term. When I got the collars, within 2-3 weeks, I could see how effective they were going to be. I went and I bought another cow. That black cow over there behind us, I bought her straight away because I was like, oh, these are brilliant.
Basically free cow.
Yeah, exactly. Well, the money that I would have spent on feeding them that winter bought me another cow. When they're on the other crofts doing the conservation grazing, I'm checking them every 2-3 days anyway, so you don't notice it. And then the RSPB and Nature Friendly Farming Network did there's an eagle.
Where now?
It's just dipped under the thing, dipped out of sight. We'll come to the eagles. There's plenty to talk about there. But we had an open day, and then people were coming, and you know, this is fresh eyes on my cows, and they're like, oh, your cow's in great condition. And that's very reassuring, because when you see them every day, you don't really notice and appreciate it. And then when I say, well, I've only spent like £150 on mineral licks for them just to keep them sweet. That's all I've spent on them this winter. And yeah, it's brilliant. And hopefully I've got eight head of cattle here. There's a calf and there's a bullock, but the other 6 are pregnant. Touch wood, if I have, well, I would hope at least 5 calves out of this. So if I get 5 calves, I'll be getting more collars for this winter, and yeah, we'll see how that goes.
So you can see a way forward for expanding and growing that herd a bit.
Yeah, I can see real growth opportunities there if I can keep them. You know, like that. Where's the bullock? The bullock is here somewhere. I don't know where he is. He's 2 now, but he's not ready to kill. So I can keep him for 3, 4, 5 years maybe, until he's fully grown, ready to be slaughtered. He's a pure Highland. But because of the collar, there's no running costs for him, if you know what I mean. There's no feed costs in the winter. The only costs really are going to be a little bit of my time, which isn't much because they're looking after themselves, and maybe some medicinal treatment every now and again. So if I can keep, it's about keeping the inputs down. That's the only thing I've got control of, keeping the inputs down. And yeah, they went to an Aberdeen Angus bull last summer, so we'll see how that goes. I mean, I've been really lucky. How many have I had? 8. I've had 8 calves born. 7 of them have been female. So that's been great while I'm building the herd. Now I've reached the stage where I'm happy with the numbers. Like, please give me 5 or 6 males this year.
It's got to even out, right?
Yeah. So then there's no decisions to be made in terms of are they staying or are they going. As soon as they're born, I know, sorry, you're going, but that's going to be beef down the line.
Wow.
Shall we go for a spoon to see if we spot an eagle?
Love to.
You jump in then.
Because actually, we'll talk about environmental management and stuff shortly as well.
Shoot.
Yeah, so actually, we should talk about that. Your Highland cattle that we've just been looking at, they are instrumental in helping to keep this moorland the way that it is and the way that people like to see it.
Yeah, they are, and that's I think that's the important thing. You know, these cows and the same with the sheep. They're built for this environment. This is their natural habitat, And
what benefits do they provide? Because actually the hoof prints dig up the ground and then the wildflowers grow.
Yeah, there's all these kind of things. The cows in particular, because the way they hoover up everything, I was talking earlier about the conservation grazing for the corn crakes and things. They're hoovering up the dead grass as well as the living grass, allowing new growth to come through, allowing corn crakes to have cover in the spring. They're part of the cycle. And the other thing is, they're taking in one end, but they're providing fertilizer out the other. So, and then that's providing bugs, and then bugs are providing food for birds. So it is that cycle. I think the last 2 years have shown us how important food security is. If, for example, when COVID hit and everybody was panicking about, are we going to have, that's the first time in my lifetime that we've had empty shelves in the shops. But I knew we'd be fine, because if we had to, we could go and slaughter some sheep. So we weren't going to starve anyway. And the time of year it's like, well, we can go and catch some fish. We can, you can live off the land. There's that side of things. And now we've been so reliant as well on synthetic fertilizers. And then when you look at what's going on in Ukraine, the price of fertilizer going through the roof, and the price of fuel, and you're going to be working big tractors to for your high output. If you can then get people to harvest all your crops, I've got fertilizers, natural fertilizers that are fertilizing the croft free. So there's a lot of benefits that have to be factored in. And like I said, I think the food security and the food security over the past couple of years has maybe highlighted the importance to a lot of people who had never ever considered it before, because food was always just in Tesco without having to think about it.
I think what's becoming clear as we chat, Donald, is that there's no black and whites in any of this, is there? You're living very much in the shades of grey. You're living in an equilibrium of different decision makings and kind of things that have knock-on impacts on other things.
Yeah, it's a bit like my hair colour now. It used to be jet black, but there's a lot of grey in there. The world that we live in is used now to being polarised. It is black or white. That grey area in the middle.
280 characters on Twitter.
Yeah. And don't get me wrong, I love it. But
love a fight.
Yeah, love a fight. But I think you're right there. We live in the grey, and I think probably most of us live in the grey, but social media forces us to be either black or white, and it's very difficult to let people see that. And you can be, I know plenty of people I've argued with on Twitter, you've been baying for blood. Then as I've calmed down, you're like, we probably agree on more than we disagree on. It's the nuance in between it all that is being lost, and I think it's a societal thing now.
I might sound like I'm telling you off. I don't mean to, but actually arguing with folk on Twitter isn't going to get you very far. It's looking for the common ground and looking for the ways forward that is going to make progress. Again, I don't want to sound like I'm boring.
I know, and you're absolutely right, because when I say I argue with folk on Twitter, a lot of it, one of my go-to things is send a picture of my cows out here on the moor. You'll say rewilding or veganism, and I'll just send them a photo of the cows here and say, if it's rewilding, it's like, okay, would you plant trees here? Now I know that this is deep peat over 50 centimetres, and that Scottish Government, for example, would not fund any planting of trees on deep peat here. The other thing, maybe I will admit to trolling the odd vegan now and again. I'll say, do you like to eat heather or grass? Because that's the only stuff that's going to grow out here. We're not going to grow any potatoes and turnips aren't going to grow here. You're not going to grow fruit and veg out here. If we, the people here, are going to be have any form of food security, it's livestock are the answer here.
Food security, but also being economically active.
Yeah. If we go back a few steps, I think the issue is that a lot of people today are disconnected as to where their food comes from. I met, there's a boy who plays in the same football team as me, and his girlfriend was from, I think she might have been from Glasgow, she was a vegan, and he introduced us, and he was like, he was like,
He knew, did
he knew. He was like, I can't remember her name, and he was like, this is her, and then he goes, and this is Sweeny. He's a crofter. And he just lit the touch paper and ran away, and he was like, he's just giddy in the background. And the conversation I was having with her, and she was rattling off all the stuff that I've heard a million times. But I knew within about 30 seconds that I was the first person that was able to act, that had answers to these things. So it's easy, and this isn't a criticism of vegans. This is a criticism of society, where we've become so disengaged as to where our food is coming from. If people are properly educated as to the whole process, you take livestock out of it. Let's take sheep out of the process. Okay, that means it's much less viable for anybody here to be an active crofter. It means that people aren't going to be engaged in the crofting setup. You take sheep out of it, you're not going to have wool, which is a much more natural and sustainable clothing than the stuff full of microplastics that everybody wears. Better for the environment. You take wool out of it, and you're not going to have Harris Tweed, which is a big employer in these islands. So there are lots of nuance.
Again, everything held in balance.
Yeah.
Precariously, actually.
But there are little things that you can see that, if I put my finger on lack of knowledge of the food system, that is one of the issues. For me, if it's going to be viable, I'm selling a product, but I'm selling a story as well. So I've got to sell, the story has to be as good as the product.
That's why we're here, really. That's why we've come here with the podcast. So what is your story? What is the story of the meat that you sell?
Right now, I don't know. No, I think it's low input, low output. I'm learning over the years, what do people want, what works with people. I think the more low input, low output route that I go down, the better the feedback is. I am now running a lot of the crofting business the same way as my grandfather was. If you went back to my grandfather's generation, I reckon his way of crofting would have been identifiable. Somebody who lived here 1,000 years before would recognise some of the ways that he worked, because they had to work with the environment. And social media, 20 years ago, none of this would be viable. I couldn't do it if I didn't have social media, and I can reach 20, 30,000 people in the blink of an eye. Like when I have pork, a lot of the pork goes to Lewis and Harris because the pork is different here. There's not many pigs here. Lamb, not many people here want to buy lamb, because if they want lamb, somebody has it. Beef, again, is relatively easy to sell here. But for the niche market that I'm aiming for, it's get it off island. But to get it off island, there's the eagle. There's the eagle there. I just saw wings behind that.
Missed it again. Where am I looking?
Pretty much straight ahead.
Oh.
So you see there's
Just skimming the ground.
there it is now. There it is now. Yep, that's I think that's a white tail. There's a white tail there anyway. There's a young golden eagle here. So it could be the young golden eagle.
Fabulous.
So there you go. I mean, it looks like a white-tailed eagle from here.
That was great.
Shall we turn around?
Now we've seen the eagle.
You've seen the eagle.
Evidence of eagle. You are far away from the sorts of centres of decision making. How do you make sure that those important voices of the people living here are heard by the people making those decisions? Do you feel like they're keen to hear your perspectives?
The problem is that when it's, a quango or, a department or something, and it's like it's rural this, it's island that, then when that issue is maybe raised mainstream, let's say it's some kind of island schools issue. They'll say that's an island issue. That's not an education issue, or that's an islands issue, not a development issue. It's important that our voices are still heard at the big table, not just the little tables on the outside.
Yeah, but how? How does that? How would you like to see that happen, or happen better?
I mean, I know that in terms of Lewis, Western Isles, crofting, I have a platform. You know, I do TV stuff. Not everybody knows who I am. I know that, but I have more of a platform than many others. So anybody listening to this, they might have heard me on TV or on another podcast or on radio or something like that. It's emphasize these messages again and again and again. I love pulling people up on Twitter about it as well. You know, calling a house a croft or saying that we're remote. Instantly, the question is
Red rag to a bull.
Remote from what? You know, that's always my question. This is the center of the universe. I think you're learning that now. It's the center of my universe anyway. I mean, you look out this door, out that window right now. Okay, what can you see?
Moorland.
Uh-huh.
A lane, the peat road, as you called it. Wildflowers, clouds, rain.
Okay, right, I'm going to tell you what I see. I see all the peat banks. Over there, I can just see the part of the wall from an old fank that's probably several hundred years old. Here, the crook and glass, the green mounds in front of us, which were either round houses or burial mounds. I don't know if you can see how they're bright green right in front of us. This is where people lived or died thousands of years ago. You could come here and say this is a pristine environment, untouched by man.
Empty.
But it's not. This is a managed landscape and has been for thousands of years.
What, just something to sort of finish up the episode, I suppose, but what are the biggest things that you wish people understood better about crofting? What are the things that, given that we will have people listening to this in Holyrood, in those positions of influence, what should they know?
The basics. You're using the wrong terminology, then you've instantly got no credibility here, and you are perpetuating stereotypes elsewhere. A lot of the issues are really because Scottish media or even UK media are remote. They are far, far away, and they use the stereotypical language, and all it does is re-emphasize stereotypes. I know I was on it, but in 2020, Ramesh Ranganathan, the comedian, he did his program. He came up here, did the misadventures of Ramesh Ranganathan, and came to the Hebridean, and I was his guide for the week. But he got it. He recognised the fact that he was travelling to a different place. They treated us with respect. They treated us the same as if they were going to Colombia or Nepal or somewhere else. They recognised that it wasn't going to be exactly the same as being in London, and that they had to do their research, had to do their work beforehand. A lot of people come here and they know their story already. This is a story we're going to tell, and we're going to make whatever we meet fit this story, because this is what our viewers or what our listeners want to hear. They don't care what our story is and what actually impacts us.
What they find when they get here, they've already pre-decided what they're going to...
Yeah.
I think there's a word for that. It's called journalism. Have you heard that word?
Yes, I've heard that word, and fortunately I've been busy correcting a lot of that today.
I don't think we're the worst offender.
No, you're not.
I do think, though, that actually, even in Scottish agriculture, we like to think that we speak to Scottish agriculture. Lots of people say farms and crofts in one sentence.
Yeah.
Farming and crofting. There's loads of differences between farming and crofting.
Yeah, although I'm not a farmer, so I can't tell you. I speak to farmers.
You're a food producer.
I'm a food producer, yeah. We have, I think the economies of scale, that's the big difference. The socio-economic benefits of crofting, there are so many intangible benefits to crofting. I'm speaking to you, so I've just said that, I'm speaking to you, and then I can switch to another language. And crofting was a big part of me learning that language. Where in the system is that recognised? That intergenerational transmission, where I was brought up in a Gaelic-speaking crofting community, and crofting was a big part of me learning about my environment, about my landscape, about my language, my heritage. There's a lot more to it than just the tangible stuff.
I think I'm not the one answering the questions, but the question that I just asked you is, which was, what should people understand better? I think if it was me answering, that would be my answer, that it's not just economics that you're representing here. It's history, it's heritage. You are a direct lineal descendant of thousands and thousands of years of unique heritage here. I'm putting words in your mouth now. I don't mean to do that.
But you're making me think right now, like 3 or 4 years ago, I was burying a ram at the bottom of the croft, and you can see, behind us how sandy the soil is in at the bottom, very fertile soil in here. And I was burying a ram, and I found a human skull. I think it was Iron Age. It's over 2,000 years old. We found a Viking comb another day. And instantly you thought, you're thinking people have been living here for thousands of years. I'm here right now. I am a blip in the timeline. And when you see things changing so quickly, it is a concern, because my grandfather's generation, he was still taking sheep out onto the moor, staying in a shieling in the summer, transhumance, isn't it, and that kind of stuff, when people and their livestock, move. And in the summer, the people here would move out and live on the moor at this time of year. That's all. It's not all gone, but like 99% of it has gone, because we are now becoming the same as everybody else in the world. Globalism is this great thing. It's given us all individual opportunities, but we're losing our individual or our local identities as well. So the world is a much more interesting place when you meet different people. You wouldn't go and travel anywhere if everybody was the same, and if everywhere was the same, and everyone had the same experiences. Experiences are what make life worth living. That's an important part of it. It's not that I don't want change. Change is important. You've got to evolve and move with the times. But also, don't just walk away and forget everything that's come before you. You're here for a reason.
That's brilliant. Will we wrap it there?
Yes, 10 to 4. I've got to go in an hour to the football.
Thank you so much for your time.
Shit the veha.
Does that mean you're welcome, or go away?
F off. No, you're welcome.
If you know someone who would enjoy listening to this chat, please share or recommend this episode, and of course last week's, which was the first half. Either recommend on social media, which is always appreciated, or even when you speak to someone, word of mouth. All of your help is greatly appreciated, and it's really important for spreading the word of what we're up to with OnFARM. Thanks to Donald, or Sweeny. As he says, Ness is the centre of his universe, and I think that really came across in the past 2 episodes. Thanks also to OnFARM producer Dave Howard, and massive thanks to our supporters for these episodes, the Scottish Rural Network, which is part of the Scottish Government's Rural Development Programme. The OnFARM podcast and training academy are both brought to you by our team at Scene&HerdPR and Marketing. Give us a shout, come and chat to us anytime about rural comms and marketing. We would love to hear from you.